Welcome to Chuck. Appreciate you so much for joining me. We are back in the saddle again, and the little lady upstairs, no, not totally out of the woods, may have to get a new pacemaker with 3 leads instead of 2 leads. We'll see what happens with that discussion. But as of now, we're stable. We're looking good. We're feeling good. Gorgeous as always. I appreciate all the well wishes. And I do want to say to the Indiana fans, of which we've had a lot stop by recently, class bunch, appreciate you guys and all the nice comments, despite me maybe not being as nice as I could all the time. So shout out to you guys. And of course, the JUCK'S crew. You guys are the best. Brian Hartline, the topic of discussion today, as he's become one of the biggest stories in all of college football, not just our circles, but nationally as well. Everybody's got an opinion. And it's interesting because we're not hearing many opinions on the other guys that are in similar situations, of which there are many. But Sunday, Brian Hartline posted all over social media, and USF has done really a tremendous job with the social media pushing and getting the word out about Brian Hartline. I've seen maybe more posts about Brian Hartline and USF than I have about Bob Chesney, who was hired by UCLA, and even Matt Campbell, hired by Penn State. USF in a buzz, man. They're pushing it, they're pumping it, and good for them. They should. As far as Ohio State supporters waking up Sunday morning after the game, 12 hours after the game, to all these USF videos, seeing a smiling offensive coordinator at Ohio State wearing somebody else's colors on a private jet, excited, happy, going somewhere else. Didn't feel great, but that's what he's got to do. That's what he was got to do. Now, he was part of the very poor offensive game plan, and it just got me sitting here as I see the Ohio State fan reaction and the national media reaction, kind of just wanting to talk myself through this. As Ohio State finds itself, it's just an interesting position. It's an interesting position, and I want to take it from the start, from the beginning, from his hire to what I think is kind of the inevitable conclusion, right? Like, if you're someone who thought Brian Hartline was going to stick around as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State and not take a head coaching job because he loves the Buckeyes, then you just haven't been listening to Brian Hartline. I thought that it would be a big time job, but the more I've read about USF, their investment in football, the more it sounds like this actually is probably the best G5 job that there is. It's certainly better than Bob Chesney taking the UCLA job. That's a Big Ten school. So a great opportunity for Harden in a program that's already winning right now, thanks to former Buckeye Alex Golish. But my thought from the beginning when he was hired was this was a 2-year proposition. Did we expect Ohio State to be in the playoffs in 2 years back then? Yeah. When he was hired, I expected Ohio State to be in the playoffs for the next 4, 5, 6 years in a row, foreseeable future, particularly if we expect this thing to continue to expand, which I think most of us do. When it gets to 16, Ohio State guaranteed in it with a 9-3 season. And if you are doing less than a 9-3 season, something has gone tragically wrong at Ohio State football. So yes, we assumed we'd be in the playoffs in 2 years. And if I assumed that Brian Hartline was going to be around for 2 more years, then I certainly assumed there would be this transition, but I never really thought about it. I did think about it, but all my thoughts were about recruiting and the recruiting transition from Hartline to what it looks like in that cycle when he leaves. Can the next guy keep it together, etc.? Had nothing to do with play calling. Had nothing to do with him trying to do double duty or how Ryan Day would handle it. And would Ryan Day be prepared for it? I would say Ryan Day would absolutely be prepared for it. I mean, but when we look back to this hire, when you promote him to play calling, remember he was already the offensive coordinator in title, already part of the game plan, just wasn't the guy calling plays. There's no denying that this hire, this promotion of him to the play caller always felt like Ryan Day giving him an opportunity that he deserved. And that's why a lot of people disliked it. We knew from the rip that while knowing that Brian Hartline, if he was successful, he would be off to a new job as a head coach because he has that kind of name. And again, you see the excitement around USF, and he does bring that kind of excitement. former NFL player, coming from one of the best programs in the country. Like, anybody's going to be excited about that. So Day signed up knowing that he was going to go through the growing pains of teaching Hartline for someone else to probably get the big benefit, as well as Brian. For Brian and for the new place, they're going to get the complete coach. But for Day, what was he going to get out of it? He was going to get the satisfaction of seeing one of his guys move on and be successful. Was he going to get the absolute best guy for the job? I think most would say no. And a lot of people said that after the hire, that no, this was not the best possible thing Ohio State could have done. And I can understand that. But for him not to elevate Brian Hartline for that, probably felt today like, I need to have a culture where I am promoting from within, where I'm helping my guys be successful, teaching them. And this is big for him, right? Just like he teaches and makes an impact on his players, he wants to do that with coaches as well. He's done that a ton with Brian Hartline, and he wants to see him excel to the next level. In creating that culture, in turn, makes him a more desirable coach to work for, which means when he goes to replace a coach, the options are limitless. He's already got Ohio State money behind him, and now he's got the reputation as a coach who wants his coaches to succeed, who helps them on their journey to succeed, who is loyal to his coaches. So obviously there's give and take with both, and he chose for it to be Hartline. Now, Urban Meyer used to get a 2-year verbal from anybody, because a lot of times the first year is spent as a transition year with a new coach in his room, or in this case, as the offensive coordinator. And then year 2, Urban and Ohio State they reap the benefit. So you better give me 2 years. And that conversation was had with every hire Urban made. This conversation, in my opinion, should have been one that Ryan Day had also with Brian Hartline. Like, if I'm going to invest this time in year 1, teaching you, getting your feet wet, I need to see you see it through year 2 as well. Otherwise, I'm going to go through this season teaching you for you to just walk out the door at the end. And that's not really going to be the most fair case for me in Ohio State. Like, that seems to me like that's fair to both parties. But as USF posts kind of inundate social media, some of the comments that I've seen from Ohio State fans almost sound like they have the feeling that it's like an ex who they just broke up with posting social media pics of the new fling. Like, there's some serious vitriol, man. Even from those who were originally happy for Hart. Very angry after the game. Angry to see that stuff on Sunday, saw a lot of tone deaf. And when you see these images on Sunday morning with him smiling and stuff, I mean, I get it. It definitely, I don't want to say irks me, but I see like, oh God, that sucks. And it does suck, right? It does suck. But at the same time, I can't fault him for it. What's he supposed to do? This is his new job. They want to promote their new coach. They want to get as much buzz out of it as they can. And it's not like he could have told them, look, you need to wait. You need to wait to hire me. Nobody could do that. If you want the job, you take the job. And this is when they're hiring for the job. And we're going to see a lot more of this. The fact that this is now his new job, I think, is what a lot of Ohio State fans, like, that's their point, right? This is your new job. And if your new job is to pump up the USF fans, go pump them up. They just lost Alex Golish, a great coach who established a winning program that almost made the playoffs. Follow it up with one of the hottest young names in coaching, the best wide receiver coach in America, the best recruiter in America, and a guy that comes from the best program in the country. And Hart didn't take long dropping his Ohio State lines at his introductory press conference.
I believe in really 3 main things. I think when you build things, people is number 1. People are number 1. Your process is number 2. If you don't like the outcome, change the process. The people are probably great. You already identified that. Fix that. And then it's the purpose. Your purpose can take you to levels that maybe you didn't know you were capable of. So we're going to outline that. We're going to understand that. We're going to be motivated through love, not fear. We're going to do it for the love of our brother, not for the hate of our opponent. That's how this thing is all going to be built.
And we should all be proud of him. And many who are proud of him and happy for him are saying that's great. But at the same time, like, probably best if he moves on to that and doesn't try to do double duty. And I think their fear is the double duty going to get half of him, going to be filling him in. And then if he's the one in the booth attempting to call plays, it's just not going to go good. And if things go wrong, like, all fingers are going to be pointed at this situation. We already know that, right? Because Day wants to keep him on. So the pictures on Sunday really grinded people's gears. There's no doubt about that. Would they have felt differently if Ohio State won? I think most likely. Would they have felt differently if Ohio State didn't decide to go back to the tight end invasion? Potentially. If the red zone play calling didn't look so illogical, potentially, maybe so, but no, all that happened. And to me, this was all game planning. This wasn't play calling. This was the game plan that the Brain Trust put together, not just Hartline. When we look at what happens early in the week, this is all these dudes together, Brian Hartline, Ryan Day, Keenan Bailey, Tyler Bowen, deciding how they're going to attack a game. And whether or not that is Brian Hartline calling the plays or Ryan Day calling the plays, to me, this always falls on Ryan Day with a rookie offensive coordinator, because it's his offense and he's the one that's got the final say. My personal opinion, Brian Hartline was calling the plays in sequence, choosing the plays, sequencing the plays from the booth. And Urban and Ryan Day had a lot to do, had interjected probably quite a bit in that game. I think he was very involved in that Big Ten championship game. But was he calling, first through fourth down? I don't think that's probably how it went. But either way, to me, this always falls back on Day when you got a rookie who's not really had many big games to prep with, right? You've seen a lot of trial and error this year, a lot of games where Ohio State could mess with a little of this, mess with a little of that, because the schedule ended up kind of bombing. A schedule that looked pretty tough in the beginning of the year ended up not being like that. So had a lot of time to work on stuff, but not a lot of big high pressure situations. And I just assume that most likely Day interjected himself a lot in that game. And regardless of that, with a rookie up there calling plays, it still seems to me like, this always comes back on Day for me with this offense. But when we look around the country, as we kind of project, how's this going to go moving forward? It is important to note that Lane Kiffin is really the only one who's no longer with his former team. When we look at Florida, John Summerall is going to be, taking over the Florida job. He's still coaching Tulane. They're going to be in the playoffs. When we look at Bob Chesney taking over UCLA, he's still going to be coaching James Madison. They're going to be in the playoffs. The difference there is we all know that that's a one and done proposition. That's their final hurrah with their team. And obviously they're both big underdogs, 20-some point underdogs. They'll tweak their game plan from the first time at Tulane as they're playing a rematch with Ole Miss. But, I don't know what they're supposed to do. They're heavily outmatched. James Madison plays Oregon. It almost seems like you're not going to be spending a ton of time grinding it. Like, what it is already. You're a sacrificial lamb. You get to hang the banners that you made the playoffs, and that's fantastic. There is one guy in these playoffs that's kind of in the same exact position as Brian Hartline, and that's Colin Klein, who I'm a big fan of. Colin Klein, Texas A&M's offensive coordinator, who is taking over as the head coach at Kansas State. And Texas A&M, Mike Elko's the head coach. Mike Elko, a defensive guru, they don't have a Ryan Day to lean on, right? Like, if they didn't have Colin, they're screwed. So, of course, Colin's sticking around. Colin, however, taking Texas A&M's tight ends coach with him to Kansas State. Now, if Brian Hartline were to take any of these coaches from the staff, with the way the fan base is currently taking this, I think that it would be a really, really loud, really, really loud anger, like more so than it is now. Everything I have heard, that is not in the plans, but Brian talked yesterday about his coaching staffs, and he's made some hires. He said they're not public yet. So, we don't know for sure, but I don't believe he's taking any Ohio State coaches with him. My point is, this is not a unique situation, and it's one that we're going to see more and more of as the playoff continues to get bigger, right? I mean, we're used to a 4-team playoff, and that leaves just a couple of options. Maybe the offensive coordinator at one of those 4 teams gets hired away. And we also saw a lot of jobs come open this cycle. So it's just something as we move to more and more teams that we're going to see this affect more playoff teams, probably 3 or 4 every year. As the playoff gets bigger, we'll see it more and more. And the timing couldn't be worse. The timing for the program hiring the new coach, they need him in. The timing for the coach or the program that's losing a coach, they need him with them. They've just worked all year to get to this point. It's a terrible conundrum. Seeing a lot of comparisons of Hartline with Tom Herman, who of course stayed on Urban Meyer's staff in 2014 after getting the Houston job. Stayed on the staff, called the plays. This is absolutely nothing like that. Tom Herman was secure knowing that the players on the Houston roster, they were stuck. They couldn't go anywhere, and he couldn't go. There was no mechanism for him to go get a bunch of guys to come in. Brian Hartline, to explain the timeline here, he has 5 days from the time he inked his deal before the portal opens for his players on USF. 5 days, and keep in mind, these are guys who just played for a coach that they loved, who was a winning coach, who is going to Auburn. And what do you think he wants to do with his best players? He doesn't give a damn about Brian Hartline. He wants his best players coming with him to Auburn. So Hartline, worried now that the best players on the team are probably going with Golish to Auburn, and he's got 5 days to try to make sure that doesn't happen. He's doing that while hiring his staff, and then he's going to begin evaluating players who are entering the portal, players that we know about earlier, because the portal opens January 2nd. January 2nd. And this here, when we think about this, going to lose a lot of guys regardless. And this is a make or break portal for him, as this will be the time that he needs to use the portal for the biggest number of guys, probably for the entire time that he'll be there. So a critical portal window, not just for year one, but for his first 2 years there. Ohio State's first game will be December 31st. After that, Hartline will go straight back to USF, where he's at now this week, and the semifinals take place January 8th and January 9th, right in the middle of the portal, which is only open for 2 weeks, which means for the first week of the portal's open. That is the week Ohio State will be prepping for Georgia if Ohio State and Georgia win their first round games. You got Ohio State versus Georgia, that game prep and game planning going on, while Hartline is supposedly going to be putting together his first portal class the entire week, first week of the portal. It's only open for 2 weeks after he loses a bunch of guys. I don't know how that works. I would love somebody to explain to me how he's going to orchestrate that. It seems like an impossibility to me. It does. I mean, when we look at the last time Kirby Smart and Ryan Day went at it, that was one of the best chess games of coaching we've seen between two elite coaches in a long time. Hartline was on Jim Rome yesterday, which blows my mind that show is still a thing. I don't know what the publicist was thinking, booking him on that show, or who watches it, or where to even find it anymore. But Jim asked kind of a tough question, and he asked it in a way that I didn't think Hart was expecting it. Here's what Rome asked him.
Just take off at the end of a season, which I am fully invested in these young men. These athletes are literally living their dream. They've got 3 to 5 years to accomplish something that they can never accomplish again. And so for me to be selfishly just take off at the end of a season, which I am fully invested in these young men, it was already hard enough to tell them I was leaving. I couldn't even fathom that. So I don't know how guys can do that. I don't know how coaches can do that. But I'm not, and I'm going to do a good job balancing both.
I respect it. I think it's natural for both sides to wonder, is it realistic or is it too big of an ask to do both jobs simultaneously? Where do you come out on that? And what is your process for balancing both?
Yeah, I think we're really blessed with having great teams currently at both, obviously at Ohio State and then here at USF. I think the people that are in place, the people we've selected so far in USF are elite. And I'm down here now for, this week a little bit to kind of make sure things are off on the right foot, get in front of the coaches, get in front of the players, and make sure they see the vision. That being said, Coach Day and our staff back at Ohio State, is second to none. So they're supporting me in a big way. Now, that being said, last week was pretty tough, I'll be transparent. But moving forward, I feel like I have a really good grip on things. And my process is just making sure if I can't create more hours in the day, I have to do a really good job of maximizing those, whether it be in the morning with Zoom calls, communicating, or at night. And that's just the reality of the situation. But I know it can be done.
That is just way too much green in that office. I mean, I like green, and I think that's a pretty nice color green, but it's too much green. You know what else I hate? I hate coaches who feel the need to match their suit or their sports coat to the color of the team. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. There's some colors that don't work. And he was in kind of a light gold one yesterday. It's like, oh God, it looks so bad. I hate when Day wears it's like it looks like a pinkish shade of red. I don't like it at all. I hated it when Saban wore that to kind of match the school. It just doesn't look good. Match your tie, man. Wear a good looking suit. Anyway, personal pet peeves, not pertinent to the conversation. What is pertinent to the conversation? Hartline admitting how difficult it was last week, right? I would love if last week was different, game planning for Indiana in the Big Ten championship, and all he was doing was making phone calls last week, hadn't even gone down there yet. Like, what is it going to look like specifically in the week that the portal opens when you're supposed to be all in prepping for Georgia? What does that week look like? Do you get to that week? If you don't get to that week, if they get knocked out in the first round, you know damn well that this is being all thrown on this situation. Like, Day's going to get cooked for allowing this to happen. Like, you can just see it. Hartline's going to get cooked for, you can just hear how angry people are going to be if you think about that for a second. Georgia, I don't think so much, but I think that's actually the difficulty. The biggest difficulty there is that week. But Colin Klein and Texas A&M, if they beat Miami, then they would be in the same situation with him in Kansas State, right? He'd be prepping for not Ohio State. No, he'd have to beat Ohio State too. He'd have to beat Miami, then he'd have to beat Ohio State to be in that same situation, which is probably not going to happen for him. Yeah, that's not going to happen for him. He's probably not going to get there, but he could. He could. So for him, it's probably beat Miami, lose to Ohio State, the best case scenario, which means he'll be with Kansas State for the duration of the opening of the portal. And that, to me, look, you're the head coach. You are going to want your fingerprint on every guy that you sign. You are going to want to talk to him. You are going to want to evaluate him. I would want to be all in on that. Absolutely all in on that. So I guess the question is, does Ohio State need him? No, they don't need him. It seems pretty clear that Coach Day wants him, right? Certainly appears that way heading into the first game, at least. He's the offensive coordinator. That's how they've been doing things all year. They established the game plan together. Brian calls the plays. They run through Coach Day to the field. And I do think that he is the one calling the plays, and that's how it goes. In some of the bigger games, I think it's a little more fluid, and that's fine. It's worked for them. The issue Saturday night was the game plan and the plays that they put in every situation. All right, for this situation, 1st and 10 in the low red zone, we're first and goal in the low red zone, we are going to choose from these formations and these plays. Like all that's put there, and he's just choosing, on what they already have broken down. And it's like that throughout the game. Like everything, there's a lot of this that is pre-done for him, and he is just trying to build one off the next. And really, in large part, I thought they did a pretty damn good job. Like the play calling throughout the game wasn't bad. I didn't like the tight ends. I didn't like the lack of tempo at any point. I hated that. We talked about that in the last video, but it's an interesting situation, man. It's an interesting situation. I guess I wonder, even though Day thinks he wants this now, does he see after game one that maybe this gets wonky? Does he have the same concerns looking forward to the week that they would be potentially prepping for Georgia with the transfer portal? Is he looking at that thinking that might be totally different? I mean, it's clear that he wants him to be able to be with his guys and be able to finish this off the way he wants to do. It's the noble thing to do. It's what he wants to do. He's a class act. And there are some people in the media who are respected, who don't think this is going to work. One of them, somebody that obviously a lot of Ohio State fans respect, and that's Jake Booty. Here's him yesterday speaking on the situation.
And another thing that it's going to affect Ohio State. I really do think it is. These coaches that have committed to other places, I respect coaches and how many hours they put in. You can't be in two places at once. You just can't. In Indiana, no Indiana coordinators are taking head coach jobs. That entire program has complete alignment and buy-in, top down. They are zero focused on their singular goal. Hartline has two goals. He wants to be the best coach at USF and win a national title. You can't be 100% in both places. Oregon, both their coordinators have taken head coaching jobs. I just don't. It's a strange time we're in college football. We're going to see that show up here at some point throughout the playoffs, but not for Indiana because their coaches are committed to the goal overall.
That almost sounds like a shot, or at least, if nothing else, puffing up Indiana. I promised Jake that Shanahan and Haynes will be sought after real soon. They're not going to remain with Kurt Signetti forever. They are now big names in college football, and people be coming, and they'll be gone too. So they're going to deal with this as well. They're just not this season. And to the Ohio State point, to the Oregon point, he's probably right. Probably is going to affect quite a bit. I guess I just am wondering what the path is to have it affect it in the least amount. Because when we look at Oregon, again, Dan Lanning, a defensive guy, losing Will Stein would be crippling. So he needs him. Elko needs Colin Klein. Day does not need Hartline and doesn't need this to be more difficult. So ultimately what happens, I don't know. I do want to make clear I am not crapping on Hartline. The only thing I would be critical of him about is if he was to say I'm staying and then just say forget about it, which he would never do. Or if he would have said in the beginning, I'm going to stay 2 years, and then said, wow, this opportunity came up. It might not be here. Like, you know what? You sign up for 2, that's 2, that's it. Like, you're got to be a man of your word, which I'm sure he was, and that conversation must not have taken place. So I'm happy for him. I'm excited for him, but this is just it's a big concern, man. It's a big concern. Ultimately, I think that Ryan Day is the best head coach in college football. I think he gets the opportunity to prove that against Kirby Smart and take over the crown in front of the whole nation. And I want that game to be perfect. I want that week to be perfect. So there is some fear about that particular week. And I get that the optics suck, but for anybody who's crapping on Hartline over this, like, man, this is a guy who has given us an unbelievable run. It's been so much fun, and he's given way more to Ohio State than he could ever take at this point. When we look at Ryan Day, who made the decision to hire an offensive coordinator and stop calling plays himself a couple of years ago, like I had just started the show. And he hired Bill O'Brien. I have not been doing this show yet for 2 years. It's not been 2 years yet, and Ryan Day is now about to hire his 4th offensive coordinator. Do you believe this? I've not been doing this for 2 years. I was doing this when he hired Bill O'Brien, then Chip, then Hart. He will hire his 4th one before I get to 2 years. I'm guessing that's what Ryan Day did not have in mind. I'm guessing that's not what he had in mind when he decided to pull the trigger and finally go to an offensive coordinator. Anyhow, love to hear your thoughts on it, guys. Obviously, everybody's got an opinion on this one. Hot button issue, and we have got now quite a while with no football to sit and talk about plenty of things. Of course, I would love it if you would like the show and subscribe to the show. And I will, I think what I'm going to do, obviously, as we have some time here, the recruiting class, I'm going to break down by position. We're going to watch some more film, talk about some of these guys, do some superlatives on this class, and get back into a little bit of that. Of course, we will cover all the other games throughout the playoffs, the ones that the Buckeyes aren't playing in as well, because we got some time on our hands. And boy, I've got a lot to say about how that playoff shook down the committee, and about particularly Notre Dame. It's a really interesting situation that they're in. And I know they're getting crapped on a lot, but I'm curious if we put ourselves in the situation of a Notre Dame fan, how you think you would come out on this? How you think you would come out on all of this? Because the way they've come out on it, to me, I don't think I would come out on it the way they are. And I got some family and friends who are Notre Dame fans. I'd be interested to talk to them about this as well. But we'll get into all that stuff, the recruiting class, breaking it down by position group and such. Of course, tonight we will be live on Buckeye Huddle at 8:30 every Monday and Wednesday. I'm sorry, at 8 every Monday and Wednesday. We are live over there on the Buckeye Huddle channel, and pop in there, get in the comment section. All your topics I usually bring up, if they're good, they got to be good. And we will wrap over there. So I appreciate you guys all so much. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out.